In a world gone mad with unnecessary reboots, remakes, and sequels, only one podcast has the guts to make it even worse. This is Smack My Pitch Up.
Geeks, and welcome to another amazing episode of Smack My Pitch Up, the podcast that reboots, remakes, redoes everything.
I lost track of that. All the things, yes.
All the things, all the redos of stuff that we have come to. It's all a blend at this point. I love it when it's like it's a Torch Pass movie sequel reboot that they do now, where it's technically a sequel, but it's also brand new.
But it's just there to make money? Yes. Love it.
Yeah. Oh, it's where everything's got subcategoried so much that they don't even make sense when you try to explain what it is now. It used to be just a remake or a reboot, and then that's it.
We got one of the old guys and Timothy Chalamet, and we're calling it a reimagining sequel. Was it Legacy? Legasequel is the big thing now?
Legasequel. Yeah, absolutely. And we see it with the Ghostbusters is a good one. Creed is another one. Oh, a good one was the Matrix. Ben Stiller Owen.Wilson.
Zoolander 2?
No, not Zoolander 2, the car one. Starsky and Hutch.
Oh, yeah.
Where at the end, the original guy showed up and sold them the car.
Yeah, it's gross.
And it was, yeah, I don't know. 21 Jump Street was the same way.
Yeah, except
we were in Jump Street.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a really fun film. Speaking of a fun film, no, this is a good film, the one that we're talking about this episode, but I wouldn't go so far to say fun. It's hitting a lot of fear points for men, I guess. It's definitely a morality tale, kind of.
It is a morality. It's a straight up morality play, and that's fine. Oh, and by the way, the other gentleman is Mike. I'm Thandi. We love you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, the intro stuff that we normally do at the beginning. Got so excited to just jump in.
Yeah, no, so I love this movie. Like, I hadn't seen it in 20 years, and I was into it like I was in the movie theater eating popcorn. I was into it. Like, I was talking to myself and going, oh no, and I had all the anxiety of a dude watching a dude just do stupid shit, making stupid dude mistakes. Oh, it was awesome. I thought this was a really good movie. I didn't remember that it was a really good, I thought the cinematography was good. I thought that the acting was good. The storytelling was interesting. I was all in on this.
And I feel they didn't over-explain anything. It was just the information that you needed to get, through that part of the plot. It wasn't trying to over-decorate the movie with a bunch of additional people or side. I was trying to think of side characters that I would need to cast possibly while watching this movie, and there's only 4 other people in this movie besides the main people.
It's a very small story.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's all it needs to be. It doesn't detract by keeping it small at all. It actually keeps it a much tighter movie. And this is just under 2 hours. It's not a short movie. It's a standard length.
Yeah, it's a full story, but it kept me engaged the entire time. You know what? Big up to Adrian Lyne for doing the same movie over and over again for 40 years and making it pretty great every time.
The amount of sexy thrillers that Michael Douglas has been in is just incredible to me. That there was just a period of time, there's like a 10-year little spot that Michael Douglas was just like on screen fucking
just pawing
everyone.
People. Like they don't do this kind of movie anymore for probably years, but he is manhandling. What's his co-star's name? Glenn Close?
Glenn Close.
He's manhandling Glenn Close. It is disgusting and awesome.
There is a scene where Glenn Close pulls down her shirt into her first reveal of her nipple, and I swear in my head Michael Douglas went as he went and jumped on it.
Right.
Just ready to roll. Just aggressive fucking in this movie.
Yeah. No, it is a sight to behold. Like I said, they don't make movies like this anymore. Sexy thrillers get made sometimes, but as far as people pawing each other, that doesn't happen like that anymore.
No, I think the most recent pawing at each other sex scene that I saw was in Bros.
Oh, did they have something like that?
Something, but it was actually playing at the aggressive sex scenes a bit, where they're like shoving their feet in each other's face and not in a sexy way, like pressing their head against the wall kind of thing. Very funny. Very funny.
I love it.
But yeah, one thing I do miss about these sexy thrillers, and something that just, like you said, wouldn't play today, is that morality aspect of don't cheat on your wife because she might be fucking crazy. And the rule that we learned as teenagers from like our older brothers and older friends is like, there are some things that come with, as they said, and the time, sticking your dick in crazy.
Yeah.
Is that you don't know what kind of results may come from that.
That was the saying, but as somebody from the restaurant industry, I had to. I couldn't help it. It was part of my lifestyle.
Look, everybody at a certain point in their life needs to have a horror phase, male or female, in between. Everybody needs. I think it's important, absolutely, to really explore what you like, what you don't like, what you're willing to handle and what you're not willing to handle. I think that's a super important thing. There's no shame in it whatsoever. I've had my time. My friends have had their time. Good for fucking them. But yeah, occasionally you'll run across somebody that, oops, that was a bad idea. And this is definitely that story.
And and you knew better. Like, once she started spitting her game, and I was like, man, Alex has mad game, but it's a little bit scary. Before they even got into stuff, I was like, oh man, this is way aggressive. This might not be a good scene for you, man. No, it's not going to be a good scene for him, but yeah. Woo.
When the moment hits where suddenly, and I think it was very deftly written, the turn in the conversation from it being very light, nobody saying anything flirtation, to being overt flirtation, where they discuss basically who's making the call on which way this goes. And Michael Douglas says, that's definitely your call, not mine. I'm like, bitch, you're married. Like, what do you mean that's her call? She's got nothing to lose in this situation.
At that point, I think he was just having fun with it. He's like, yeah, we're going to fuck. And she's, oh, yeah, no, we're going to fuck. And he's like, okay.
No, he was playing with it like the night before what you know is going to be a long day at work, and you start playing with the idea of calling out, but you know in your head you're eventually going to call out. Like, you've already made that determination in your brain, but you haven't really admitted it to yourself yet. That's the flirtation that he's doing with fucking. Like, he knows that's where it's going 100%, but he's, no, I'm a good husband. I wouldn't do that. But what would it be like? He already knows it's happening. He already knows it's going on. Even with Glenn Close, is like, I haven't decided. Yes, bitch, yes, you have. You have decided. What do you mean, no, I haven't decided?
Yeah. Yes, she has decided. That's one of the old pieces of wisdom, too, is that she knows beforehand and it's on you to F it up. But in his case, effing it up was actually going and doing the thing.
Yep. And I was curious to see how it played for me as an adult, the turn from it being this mutual decision to hook up and fool around that was like, he's married, he can't turn in anything, everybody knows, to it being this weird stalker kind of story. And man, it didn't age poorly at all. I feel like it felt very genuine. Once you're in it, it's a different story than when you're just hypothetically discussing it.
Yeah. So for me, the thing that was striking, because a lot of the movies very naturalistic, except for Glenn Close seems like a cartoon character. And if I hadn't engaged with people like Glenn Close, I would be like, man, she's playing a cartoon character, but she's playing people that I've met. This is perhaps not where it goes, but this is a very understandable relationship situation, because I've seen it.
Yeah, I have too. And yeah, this is definitely a turned up to 11 version. Great. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. It works. It's not like a Fast and Furious movie where nothing makes sense. The human relationships here fit the way that they should to make sense. So that being said, let's ruin it. Let's take this movie we're very happy with, that I don't really see any reason.
Yeah, because I feel like we can only ruin it. Like, the genre has been done to death at this point. It was really interesting finding any angle to get a grip on, but yeah, I love this movie enough that I think it stands on its own whether we ruin it or not.
This is really one of the top 3 sexy thrillers, right?
Definitely.
There's like Basic Instinct, Fatal Attraction, and then maybe, 9.5 Weeks?
Yeah. So my favorite before this, because I don't watch sexy thrillers all the time, I never did, was Unfaithful, which is also an Adrian Lyne movie from like 2002 or something. It made me have a chub for Diane Lane until now. Even as Ma Ken, I was like,
Diane Lane is aging well.
Yeah.
She's doing a very good job there. And yeah, the sexy thrillers, there was a time in my life that I went through all of them. I like Jade, was watching 9.5 Weeks, of course, Basic Instinct.
the Sargasso.
What was the one? Body Heat? You remember Body Heat? I think, was that Melanie Griffith? Was that? I can't remember. But yeah, there was just a series of sexy thrillers. And then that kind of tweaked into it being more of the murdery aspect than the sexy aspect. And that's where you start getting into Seven and Taking Lives and Suspect Zero and all these like gritty crime thrillers.
Yeah.
I feel are definitely a bastard child of the sexy thriller.
Yeah, but you know, the sexy thriller was cheap to make, so it dominated like the 90s. It was a sexy thriller and courtroom dramas and just stuff that you didn't have to spend a whole lot of money on. Sets or places that weren't just people's houses it was a good time in cinema because the focus wasn't on the spectacle. You had some interesting scripts and some interesting characters.
And that's why I'm interested to see what we're exactly going to do with this. If you didn't listen to the last episode, we have tweaked the format a little bit where instead of 4 different takes of the movie we're talking about, one of us gets the reboot or remake version, the thing that we think might actually be the best bet for the film. And one of us gets the remix version, the wackadoo, weird, fully out of the box take on this. Sometimes those 2 versions are actually pretty close as far as whether or not we want to see these versions or not, and sometimes they're wildly different. But you get the real take this go.
I got the real.
So I'm interested to see if you're going with that sexy thriller vibe, if you're trying to go more modern take. What are we doing here?
So I am going full-on sexy thriller, and with that as a thing, I had to find something to latch onto to make it interesting. So something that I noticed in Fatal Attraction, is that they were really casually racist a couple times, making fun of Asian people, because that's the race that was in the movie. And then, in addition to that, I watched this other thriller that was from a fair thriller that was from the early 70s called Play Misty for Me.
Yeah.
It had some it wasn't racist at all, but it had some really interesting relations to others in the movie because it was the early 70s, so they were like, oh, let's put all these people in the movie, but they weren't people, they were like set dressing. So it had a black person and another black person and a gay person, but they were just so they could have these things in the movie to be like, oh, well, America's a melting pot, but they weren't important or really part of the movie or addressed as individual beings. They were just people that were set dressing for the movie. So I wanted to address what race relations are like now with from the point of view of white affluence, because those are the people that are in the original movie, these affluent white people like living their wonderful lives. So I wanted to have these affluent white people living their wonderful lives, and I wanted to have race as a component that is not directly addressed, but I wanted to see in real time people basically having microaggressions, basically being casually racist in a way that people do, not like, oh, I hate these people or whatever, just the way people do when they're comfortable and intimate, that kind of casual racism. I wanted to see that throughout the movie, but with it never really being directly addressed, just something that hangs over the movie. So in this modern version, this modern take on Fatal Instinct, on Fatal Attraction.
Now, Fatal Instinct is a movie.
I know.
And if I remember correctly,
like a parody movie.
Isn't that like it's a parody movie? Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So my director for this version is Michael Moen, who directed The Voyeurs. I don't know if you saw that last year.
Okay. I know what you're talking. I hadn't had a chance to see it, but I know what you're talking about.
So it is half of a really good movie. If they had stopped at the twist, then it would be a really good movie. But at the twist, there's like a whole half movie left, and it's stupid after that.
Oh, no.
But it's a sexy thriller, and I enjoyed that first half of it. So that's the director I'm going for there. And for my story, it's mostly the same beats, but we bring in some things that are a little bit different. So instead of Stuart Pankin being the friend, we're bringing in Michael Pena as Jimmy, Stuart Pankin character.
Okay.
And
okay.
as his wife, Hildy, we have Mabel Cadenia, who was Aura in Wakanda Forever. And their interaction with the couple, Dan Gallagher and Beth Gallagher, the husband and wife, the lawyer couple, the lead and his wife, what happens inside the circle of trust, which is the casual racism that happens inside of the circle of trust, but it's not really, it doesn't look like racism because it's inside the circle of trust. Everybody is accepting of what's going on there. If you watch it from the outside, if you see it from the outside, then it's yucky. It's like you hanging out with Steven or me and saying some things that are, it's funny in the moment because it's us, not racism and not inappropriate in that moment. But if somebody from the outside sees it, it's yucky.
I've had this conversation about just being in podcasting. Is that something you have to be considerate of is who's listening, your audience. It's the clarity of message is that there are jokes that, yeah, like you said, we could make with one another because the intention is incredibly clear to one another. We know each other well enough to know where the line is and what is meant by what is being said.
I've had the circle of trust conversation with women where I'm like, where I've said things in front of people that I would say in front of a woman that I'm very close with that's completely inappropriate to say under that context. It's just something you have to learn. But we're seeing this as observers and we're like, ugh, and it's just part of the whole.
That's something that's happening in modern day with social media, with the, remote-based relationships that we have, is people are starting to misunderstand like where that line is as far as comfort level and what you should be able to say in mixed company versus close. There's some things that you need to change your clarity a little bit depending on your audience.
Yeah, every conversation is not for everybody. Exactly.
That's why you should. There's some places you can't say fuck at work, and that's reasonable.
Yeah.
My job's pretty okay with it, but
for my leads, for my affluent white couple, we have Jake Gyllenhaal as Dan Gallagher.
Nice.
And as Beth Gallagher, we have Brie Larson. And as Alex, we have Lupita Nyong'o, which brings in like just a whole bunch of not in your face, but like implicit racism, because Lupita Nyong'o is the one who Jake Gyllenhaal cheats with. I also wanted to change the dynamic of that a little bit, where Jake Gyllenhaal is not just an innocent dummy. He's trying to pursue a thing. He's trying to see how long he can make this go, not realizing that this person's crazy. And then it's too late. It's not 2 days and he's like, oh, this bitch is crazy. It's like a couple weeks maybe where he's trying to like, oh, I can make this, I can juggle this, I can make this work. Oh no, she's crazy. And in the scene, like it's going to have a lot of the same beats. So when they're going to sell we're going to try ourselves to sell our house. And when Alex comes to the house and Beth meets Alex, and after Alex leaves and she sees that Dan, Jake Gyllenhaal, is very uncomfortable, she thinks it's because it's a pretty black girl. She's like, I know what you did in college. I know you were into that in college or whatever. And when she's talking about what he was into in college, she does this mock black woman accent at him.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Inside their home as part of the circle of trust.
Sure.
That people don't see. And you don't really see in movies like that either. But I want to expose that kind of thing, not as a pointed part of the movie, just as an uncomfortable background element that goes through the entire movie. And then most of the story beats are going to be the same beyond that. One thing that I will change is that her parents will be a little bit more involved as affluent whites. And when they find out that Dan has been cheating with this African black woman, the level that they're unpleased and the way that they express that is going to be a thing.
Oh, yeah. Ooh. A fog, like a fart in a room. Just hover it in there.
So because her parents are more intrinsic to the plot there, I've casted them. For Beth's mother, I have Michelle Pfeiffer. And for Beth's father, I have John Corbett. And if you don't know who John Corbett is, he was Aiden from Sex and the City, Chris from Northern Exposure, which is how I knew him, and then Ian from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And he's just a tall, handsome white guy. Even it's in the 60s, he's a tall, handsome white guy. Michelle Pfeiffer is still beautiful and older, and I wanted to, like, you to see the affluence just as, like, looking at these people. Oh, affluent whites. So,
yeah, I love trying to differentiate between being a white myself, understanding that I do differentiate myself between that and affluent white, which has a Y at the beginning. White.
Yeah.
White. Yeah. That it's a slight different inflection there that does mean a lot. It does quite a bit.
And that is, that's it.
In the circumstance, I think it's just the idea of who grew up at a level of maybe income or status that they, by need or maybe desire, hung out with non-whites. Like, actually have experience interacting with people that didn't look exactly like them or have the same experiences as them, and so don't have that, like, absence of experience that creates awkward social situations on occasion, just out of complete lack of depth of knowledge of how to act around people, which is literally just like yourself, but don't try to cater to, and then you become more awkward. That's like the white affluence things, like in Get Out, that I voted for Obama 3 times. Why was that relevant to this conversation? Like, why is that something you just blurt out?
Man, that.
If you want to see a perfect example of this, look at early television interviews with Quentin Tarantino when there's a black cast member with him during the interview. He starts talking jive.
He starts to code switch.
Like he code switches. My man, then he totally changes his inflections, and it's jarring. Like, it's so bad. I'm really glad that he got out of the habit of it. It's really bad. Yeah, so, I love those moments that speak to that. That's great.
And the only other thing I want to put in here for that pitch is that I want it to be old school sexy, and I want Jake Gyllenhaal to grab 2 big handfuls of Lupita Nyong'o's sweet, juicy can and focus on that as like an objectification of that sweet, juicy can, much different than what his wife, Brie Larson, has going on. And just as part of the underlying discomfort, he's objectifying this big black ass as part of his thing. But I want very little of it to be spoken out loud. I just want it to be, like, felt throughout the piece.
Well, I think that's going to really translate better anyway than trying to work in dialogue to explain that. No, I think showing it is going to work a lot more effectively, for sure.
And that's the pitch.
Sweet. I'm into it. It's taking aspects. It's almost like an homage to the classic sexy thriller without trying to remake. Modern take with a nice, deft handoff from the classic. So great. Into it. I am not doing that. I am being way more overt in the way that I'm approaching not just race, but also otherness, I guess, in this conversation, with Fatal Attraction being the starting point. I was interested to explore something that was troubling for me with Fatal Attraction is rooting for anyone.
Yeah.
The only innocent here is the wife. Like, she didn't do anything. She didn't deserve this. She, for everything we've seen in the film, is a devoted and loving wife that appreciates her husband and doesn't try to start fights, isn't a banshee or terrible, or hasn't driven him into the arms of another woman. He's just a scumbag that took advantage of an opportunity. And of course, Alex, the character Alex, is a psychopath. So I wanted to...
She's so scary.
Change the direction on who we're actually rooting for. Have one of the main characters as somebody that we root for. But to do that, I had to really just determine what would give us that reason to root for a person. And I think it would be this idea of otherness that is discussed a little bit in Fatal Attraction. This is a single woman that is willing to sleep with a married man. And so therefore she's treated as disposable by the married man. Mm-hmm. And she calls him out, and she did make assumptions that weren't there for sure. But what I wanted to do is flip it on its head. Actually, this was inspired by news about, Matt Schlapp, the conservative icon, that there's reports and text messages that back it up that he apparently groped a man in a car a couple years ago and was called out for it.
That's
and
not
this is
surprising.
like hard. Yeah. And this is a story told time and time again. So I thought maybe inspired by that, switching the lens that actually Dan Gallagher is a conservative politician opposed to a lawyer. And his friend, Jimmy, played by Stuart Kin, is actually just his lawyer that works on the campaign and stuff with him. And Dan is a closeted gay man. He has a wife. I didn't want to put a kid in a dangerous position in this situation. So, and also gay man with a beard, they got a greyhound. So that's
crazy. Was the random person picking your kid up from school scene, by the by.
Yeah. Talk about a fucking power move. Power move. It was like, your kid is completely safe, had a great time, took her on a roller coaster. She kissed me on the cheek. Like this. Whoa.
But also, that's a scene that would never work in modern movies because you couldn't get into the school to get somebody's kid just randomly.
Hell, that's one thing that immediately flipped in my brain when that scene came up, is that how did she just come and grab a kid? Oh, it's the 80s. They weren't checking IDs and shit at that point.
And the kid was like, okay.
Yeah, the kid being like, come with me. Sure, great. In the 80s, parents just wanted to get rid of their kids. Like, take her, great.
More time to drink for us.
Yeah, right. So Dan is a closeted conservative politician. His wife, Beth, it's not openly discussed between them, but she's pretty aware of his proclivities. She just chooses to ignore them. She appreciates the lifestyle that she's been given, is completely content to have her own trysts outside of the marriage and let him have his. And it's just an unspoken kind of thing that they have between the two of them. That the core thing is to make sure that they're not caught. They are seen as a core family value type family.
Hillary and Bill action there.
Yeah, a little bit. Kind of a little bit of that energy. And then we have, Ellen, the daughter, that's a greyhound. That's just a dog. So instead of picking up the dog from school, it'll be from the kennel they kept it at while they were out of town, like doing politician stuff. And then took the dog to the dog park, like doing doggy fun things.
Who frolics with a side piece in public?
Yeah, that's rough. So this story is less so about the cheating aspect and more about the realization that Dan and Alex, I don't even have to change the name for the man that he has a tryst with, doesn't realize that Dan is a conservative politician when they have this experience. And it's shortly after this experience when Dan's in town in DC, has this tryst with this dude. He lives nearby, maybe like Baltimore or something relatively close, but not in DC. And then he sees Dan's face on the TV as he's elected, like he's been elected or his position. That's where Alex decides to have some fun with this man that he had real feelings for and is against gay marriage, calls it an abomination, gays are grooming, that whole fucking party line shit. And it's infuriating, but he also like still has feelings for him. So it's this confliction. So he's threatening to out him, to tell the press and all this stuff. And he has pictures of them together on his phone and all this stuff. And so Dan is a mess. This can ruin everything, can ruin his political career, ruin this very intentionally curated marriage that he has. Oh, let me name these people. Actually, this is directed by John Cameron Mitchell, who is best known for Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Also, that movie How to Talk to Girls at Parties, which if you haven't seen is based on a Neil Gaiman short story, and it's a sci-fi weird piece. Directed an episode of Glow and a bunch of other TV shows as well. Great director. I really wanted a queer director to speak to like the experience of this closeting and like this whole story really. And Dan Gallagher is going to be played by Matt Bomer. If you are unfamiliar, he was the super spy in the Chuck TV series.
Yes.
Back in the day. He was also in Magic Mike 1 and 2. He was in The Magnificent Seven, Nice Guys, Boys in the Band.
Hold on, I thought that Chuck was Shazam.
Chuck is Shazam, but his college roommate that was the super spy, that is who he gets mistaken for. He shows up and then gives Chuck the thing or whatever. That's Matt Bomer.
Gotcha.
He's the smooth spy guy.
Actual super spy.
Yeah, the actual spy, yeah. Then we've got Alex. I wanted to really punch the otherness of this story by not just having like a queer actor visibly not code switching, very clearly gay, but also I wanted a Latino actor as well, so I went with Wilson Cruz. And if you're unfamiliar, he's in Star Trek Discovery as one of the doctors. He was in Party Monster as Angel, and he was Ricky in My So-Called Life way back in the day as well. Great actor, I think would nail this role as just like a kind of vindictive, scorned lover that is trying to get back at this conservative politician that he had a tryst with.
Yeah, him being Latino works for that whole kind of thing too.
And just the whole party line in general would be also just another condemning factor.
Yeah.
And I want a line like that. It's bad enough that you slept with a man, but he had to be Mexican. No, he's Puerto Rican. Whatever. Just dismissive kind of energy from Beth Gallagher, the wife, who's played by Amanda Seyfried.
Nice. She was actually on my short list for a wife.
Yeah, I think she can play like waspy, mean, affluent white woman very well. And just great actress. I think she would have a lot of fun in that role. Jimmy is the lawyer friend that he goes to that has some experience in like family law stuff. And he's like, hey, how does this work out? There's no baby. Nobody's pregnant in this version. It's more about some information about his governmental dealings that he let slip during the tryst that he had and how liable he would be if that came out, if that was protected in any way. And so he's going to his friend, who's played by Jared Carmichael, who I was not very familiar with until the Golden Globes this last Sunday, where he hosted and was brilliant, wonderful, and said super fucking edgy shit that like pissed off a lot of people, and I have a lot of respect for that. And I was like, you know what? You get in my movie because you were fantastic.
And he came out last year, so I'm sure that he would be all about something, a project like this.
Absolutely. And he's very funny as well. And I want this, and in that same conversation of otherness is that there's this conservative politician that's relying on what he considers a friend is really employee, this black lawyer that is one of the very few people that knows that he's gay, because Jared Carmichael, Jimmy, is also gay and is openly so. Like, it's fine, but it's also like they work together. It's like that's the comfortable in the room conversation that this conservative dude feels like he can be more gay in the room with Jimmy than he could be normally, because that's the one connecting factor they have with one another. But he's also still racist. So it's like they never really get to a point of actually being friends, because Jimmy is like, no, I know you're a racist. We're not friends. It's just, I'm not going to out you because I know how fucked up that is. I'm not going to do that. So you're safe. But then there's the boss, Arthur, from the original, was played by Fred Gwynne. And I wanted Kyle MacLachlan to play the boss. He actually was in a movie based on Tiger King, Joe versus Carol. He played Howard Baskin in that. And John Cameron Mitchell played Joe Exotic in that movie. So they have a connecting there. But the main twist of this is that at the end, or the midway point, where in the original, he tells his wife that he had an affair, that she's pregnant, that she's stalking him, and it's this whole ordeal. That's the turn where now Dan isn't the aggressor in trying to get Alex to fuck off. It's the wife. The wife takes this role of, that's the surprise in the story. The twist is that she's known all along he's gay. She doesn't give a shit. Don't take away my quality of life. Don't ruin this for me. Yeah. And then, so she gets way darker and way more fucked up about trying to get this stranger to leave her family alone. And that's where it's almost like a tag team in a wrestling ring, like your turn, and she goes after him. Yeah,
that's beautiful. And actually, I think in a practical marriage of a power couple marriage, I think that's how it works. Like the face doesn't do the public assaults. It's the other shrewd person who actually goes out and takes care of business.
Yep. So at the end of it, this is a love affair gone wrong. A conservative politician that is trying to cover their tracks as a hypocrite that is what they pretend to stand against, and a trophy wife, beard wife that is willing to kill to keep her comfort.
So I'm loving this. I'm loving this. How does it shake out?
It shakes out basically that the final scene in the original movie where she sneaks into the house to kill them and stuff. It's actually that, how to put it, the vital proof of their tryst that was on his phone was stolen by the wife and brought back to their house. So Alex isn't going in for revenge, is going in to get their phone that they have the locate feature on, and that's how they find out that it was taken, to get their phone so they have proof to try to blow it all out of the water. That's the way that I'm safe, is to actually tell people about this. So then if anything happens to me, they know who to look at. And so then it's the fight to the death in the house. And I don't want this to necessarily be like, I think as unfortunate as it is, because we are rooting for Alex at this point, I'm making Alex the person that you kind of want to succeed. I want the reality of the situation to be that's not how it works. And that, like, during the struggle, Alex is killed in their house, and they try to play it off as a burglar, like somebody that came into the house.
Some Puerto Rican guy.
Yeah, exactly. And then you throw that otherness around as a final fuck you at the end of it, is that, like, even after all this shit, you can still just throw out, it's just some Puerto Rican, and then the police will be like, yep, that we've heard of that before, and dismiss it as exactly that. Don't look into it that much. But I would love to have something at the end where the phone gets into the right hands. So even though Alex dies at the end, the information that outs Dan and his wife for being pieces of shit gets recovered and actually gets out, or it's alluded to.
Like the end of the Watchmen movie.
A similar kind of vibe to it, yeah, for sure.
I'm really into that pitch. I like that.
I'm actually really surprised there aren't that many. There just aren't that many stories about conservative politicians that are closeted, trying to protect their image. There's just not a lot of that out there. And it's such a, every like 6 months or every year, we have another story of that happening. So
yeah, I think mostly it's just a tacit agreement because these male sex workers make a lot of money off of these guys. And if you're a professional, you keep your secrets.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but in this circumstance, I thought about the sex worker vibe as well for this, but I wanted it to be genuine. Not, he fucked me so good, I love him now. Can I like? I'll give a like. We just saw True Romance recently, where Christian Slater fucks her so good that she's only 3 days into being a call girl, and she decides, I quit. Let's get married. Didn't want to give the conservative politician that kind of energy at all, but yeah. So that's my version of Fatal Attraction, is that the fatality was actually to the person that made the mistake of hooking up with a conservative.
Which is how that works.
That's how that works, yeah. And also, moral of the story is, like, be with somebody that considers you their equal, not somebody that looks down upon your station.
Or is just fetishizing you. Yeah. Or with somebody who has not worked through their own issues. I guess if that was the thing, none of us would ever be with anybody.
Or, for clarification, or is working through their own issues. Like, it's a constant, continual process. But yeah, you got to put the work in, though. So great. Yeah, I think these are both really actually possible versions of this. Mine is almost not Fatal Attraction anymore, but it's still hitting those main beats. It's kind of like the Dawn of the Dead remake.
Yeah.
The only thing there is the mall.
Well, for the fun pitches, inspired by is what we're going for, just generally.
Sure. Yeah. Now we got just a little bit left. We're talking about our trailers that we got to do now. So, yeah, I actually wrote out my trailer this time. So.
And I did not. So we'll see how.
Oh, nice. Nice little flip here. Okay, let me get us queued up here. We decided we're going to use the same track for both of ours because it's perfect, like sexy thriller backtrack here. So here we go, Thandi, with your version of Fatal Attraction.
Happy wife, happy life. But he's gotta have it. Lawyer Dan Gallagher, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, has everything. Except that sweet, sweet can he craves. So he meets Alex Force, played by Lupita Nyong'o, and ruins his own life. Join Brie Larson as his wife Beth Gallagher, Michael Pena as his buddy Jimmy, and as Beth's mother and father, Michelle Pfeiffer and John Corbett, as they try to navigate a crushing affair. He gave it all up for the nookie. That's sweet nookie, and it will destroy him unless it destroys her first. It's Michael Moen's Fatal Attraction. she will not be ignored.
Excellent. All right, let's see how much I can screw up mine here. So I'm using the same backing track. I tried to use some punning in here, so I apologize ahead of time for how stupid it is.
Make
so,
it fun!
Woo! Well, this is definitely a more fun version. With John Cameron Mitchell at the helm, you can't help but have it a little bit more ridiculous and big and a little silly. So here we go.
Man lives by the rule of law and his own morality. This March, Dan Gallagher wrestles with both as he tastes forbidden fruit. Little did he know, this fruit bites back. With his political career on the line, Dan will do anything to stop this fatal attraction. Starring Matt Bomer, Wilson Cruz, and Amanda Seyfried.
So was the double entendre intentional, or?
Yeah, this fruit bites back definitely was part of it. And I was like sitting there being like, it's a lot. No, it's the self-ownership. It's like, I'm allowed to say it. Like, it's okay.
It's awesome.
Cool. So yeah, this is a really fun take on Fatal Attraction. I appreciate all the listeners for sticking around for it. 2 episodes in a row. Who knew we'd be capable of doing such thing?
It is a possible thing, yes.
Yes. And we'll be trying to make it a 3-peat here next week with another episode of Smack My Pitch Up. Thandi, thank you so much again for joining me on this fucking escapade here.
Well, thank you, sir.
Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all the things you do for podcasts. Check us out at GUIPodcast.com for links to our social media and other shows on the network. You can hear coming, I believe, last week as of when this drops, the final regular release of Geeks Under the Influence will have dropped. And yeah, that's going to be a tearjerker for sure. And a lot of drunken revelry as well. So
yeah. But you know what? Bigger and better things. Bigger and better things to come. And everybody's still here. We're all still playing. So
also playing, and there will be occasional releases on the main feed still. That's not, we're every so often meet up and have our ha-has and do a little like free play or something or special event kind of thing. So definitely keep subscribed to that mainstream as well. But yeah, also check out TeePublic for the new Smack My Pitch Up design, or newish Smack My Pitch Up design, the Lethal Weapon inspired design with Thandi and I on it.
Great.
That's a fun design. I'm really happy how that turned out.
It's pretty inspired.
So inspiring that you almost didn't get into an amusement park with it.
Yeah. It's Danny Glover. Don't you recognize Danny Glover? Yeah.
I wish I was a fly on the wall to hear the reasoning with the security that it's just a picture of a gun on a shirt. It doesn't mean that you're like aggressing.
I had to pitch the show. I had to pitch our show to the people at the amusement park. I pitched it well enough to let me in, so.
Pull it up on Spotify. No, see, it's real. It's right here. Oh, that's so funny.
I don't get it.
So yeah, try your hand at getting into an amusement park with our shirt and let us know how it turns out. Pitch Smacked on social medias for the most part. Hashtag us Pitch Smacked. And we'll see you next time. I'm Mike the Hobbit.
And I'm Thandi.
And you just got your pitches smacked all up and stuff.
It's a swing and a pitch, and it's smacked out of the park.
GUIPodcast.com